Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like na 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 na. For my top 10, top 10, top 10, na 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 na. This one's for my top 10.
Need motivation?
Watch Top 10 with Believe Nation.
Hey, it's Evan Carmichael, and this channel was created to help you overcome the #1 challenge that is holding you back, a lack of belief in yourself. You watch these videos because you know there's something more inside you. You've got Michael Jordan level talent at something. So get ready to work super hard, have a great product, and attract great people with Elon Musk and my take on his top 50 rules for success. Enjoy. Okay, let's kick it off with rule #1, work super hard.
Depending on how well you want to do, and particularly if you're starting a company, you need to work super hard. So what does super hard mean? Well, when my brother and I were starting our first company, instead of getting an apartment, we just rented a small office and we slept on the couch. And we showered at the YMCA, and we're so hard up we had one computer, so the website was up during the day, and I was coding at night. 7 days a week, all the time. And I sort of briefly had a girlfriend in that period, and in order to be with me, she had to sleep in the office. So work hard, like, every waking hour. That's the thing I would say, particularly if you're starting a company. And I mean, if you do simple math, you say like, okay, if somebody else is working 50 hours and you're working 100, you'll get twice as much done in the course of a year as the other company.
Rule #2, have a great product.
You've got to make sure that whatever you're doing is a great product or service. It has to be really great. And I go back to what I was saying earlier, where if you're a new company, I mean, unless it's like some new industry or new market that, if it's an untapped market, or then you have more ability to, the standard is lower for your product or service. But if you're entering anything where there's an existing marketplace against large entrenched competitors, then your product or service needs to be much better than theirs. It can't be a little bit better, because then you put yourself in the shoes of the consumer, and they say, why would you buy it as a consumer? You're always going to buy the trusted brand unless there's a big difference. So a lot of times, entrepreneur will come up with something which is only slightly better. And it can't just be slightly better. It's got to be a lot better.
Rule #3, attract great people.
If you're creating a company or if you're joining a company, the most important thing is to attract great people. So either join a group that's amazing, that you really respect, or if you're building a company, you've got to gather great people. I mean, all a company is a group of people that have gathered together to create a product or service. And so depending upon how talented and hardworking that group is, and the degree to which they are focused cohesively in a good direction, that will determine the success of the company. So do everything you can to gather great people if you're creating a company.
Rule #4, look for problem solvers.
When I interview someone to work at the companies, would be to ask them to tell me about the problems that they worked on and how they solved them. And if someone was really the person that solved it, they'll be able to answer multiple levels. They'll be able to go down to the brass tacks. And if they weren't, they'll get stuck. And then you can say, oh, this person was not really the person who solved it, because anyone who struggled hard with a problem never forgets it.
Also, if you want to have more confidence, check out my 254 series. It's free. The link to join is in the description below.
There are just times when something is important enough, you believe in it enough, that you do it in spite of the fear.
Rule #5, focus on signal over noise.
Focus on signal over noise. A lot of companies get confused. They spend money on things that don't actually make the product better. For example, at Tesla, we've never spent any money on advertising. We put all of the money into R&D and manufacturing and design to try to make the car as good as possible. I think that's the way to go. For any given company, just keep thinking about, are these efforts that people are expending, are they resulting in a better product or service? And if they're not, stop those efforts.
Rule number 6, do something important.
How did you figure you were going to start a car company and be successful at it?
Well, I didn't really think Tesla would be successful. I thought we would most likely fail. But I thought that we at least could address the false perception that people had that an electric car had to be ugly and slow and boring like a golf cart.
But you say you didn't expect the company to be successful, then why try?
If something's important enough, you should try, even if the probable outcome is failure.
Rule number 7, take a risk.
Now is the time to take risk. You don't have kids. As you get older, your obligations increase. So and once you have a family, you start taking risk not just for yourself, but for your family as well. It gets much harder to do things that might not work out. So now is the time to do that before you have those obligations. So I would encourage you to take risks now. Do something bold. You won't regret it.
Rule number 8, don't listen to the little man.
So many people tried to talk me out of starting a art company. It was crazy. One good friend of mine collected a whole series of videos of rockets blowing up and made me watch those. He just didn't want me to lose all my money. We're doing these things that seem unlikely to succeed. And we've been fortunate, and at least thus far, they have succeeded.
Rule number 9, really like what you do.
Really liking what you do, whatever area that you get into, given that, even if you're the best, there's always a chance of failure. So I think it's important that you really like whatever you're doing. If you don't like it, life is too short. If you like what you're doing, you think about it even when you're not working. I mean, it's something that your mind is drawn to. And if you don't like it, you just really can't make it work, I think.
Rule number 10, never give up.
That third failure in a row, did you think, I need to pack this in?
Never.
Why not?
I don't ever give up. I'd have to be dead or completely incapacitated.
Rule number 11, act despite fear.
You're unusually fearless and willing to go in the face of other people telling you something is crazy. And I know a lot of pretty crazy people, you still stand out. Where does that come from, or how do you think about making a decision when everyone tells you this is a crazy idea? Or where do you get the internal strength to do that?
Well, first of all, I'd say I actually think I feel fear quite strongly. So it's not as though I just have the absence of fear. I feel it quite strongly. But there are just times when something is important enough, you believe in it enough, that you do it in spite of the fear.
So speaking of important things.
Like, people shouldn't think, people shouldn't think, well, I feel fear about this and therefore I shouldn't do it. It's normal to feel fear. Like, you'd have to be something mentally wrong if you didn't feel fear.
So you just feel it and let the importance of it drive you to do it anyway?
Yeah. Actually, something that can be helpful is fatalism, to some degree. If you just accept the probabilities, then that diminishes fear. When starting SpaceX, I thought the odds of success were less than 10%. And I just accepted that actually probably I would just lose everything. But that maybe would make some progress. If we could just move the ball forward, even if we died, maybe some other company could pick up the baton and keep moving it forward, so that would still do some good. Same with Tesla. I thought the odds of a car company succeeding were extremely low.
Rule number 12, focus on the customers.
I would definitely advise people who are starting a company to expect a long period of quite high difficulty.
Yeah.
But as long as people stay super focused on creating the absolute best product or service that really delights their end customer, if they stay focused on that, then if you get it such that your customers want you to succeed, then you probably will.
All right. You have to focus on the customer and delivering for them.
Yeah. Make sure if your customers love you, your odds of success are dramatically higher.
Yeah.
Rule number 13, have a high pain threshold.
One does have to be focused on the short term and money coming in when creating a company, because otherwise the company will die. So I think that a lot of times people think like creating a company is going to be fun. I would say it's not. It's really not that fun. I mean, there are periods of fun, and there are periods of where it's just awful. And particularly if you're the CEO of the company, you actually have a distillation of all the worst problems in the company. There's no point in spending your time on things that are going right. So you only spend your time on things that are going wrong. And there are things that are going wrong that other people can't take care of. So you have like the worst. You have a filter for the crappiest problem in the company, the most pernicious and painful problem. So I wouldn't say I think you have to feel quite compelled to do it, and have a fairly high pain threshold. And there's a friend of mine who says like starting a company is like staring into the abyss and eating glass. And there's some truth to that. The staring into the abyss part is that you're going to be constantly facing the extermination of the company. Because most startups fail. It's like 90%, arguably 99% of startups fail. So that's the staring into the abyss part. You're constantly saying, okay, if I don't get this right, the company will die. It can be quite stressful. And then the eating glass part is you've got to do the problems. You've got to work on the problems that the company needs you to work on, not the problems you want to work on. And so that's you end up working on problems that you'd really wish you weren't working on. And so that's the eating glass part. And that goes on for a long time.
So how do you keep your focus on the big picture when you're constantly faced with, we could be out of business in a month?
Well, it's just a very small percentage of mental energy is on the big picture. Like you know where you're generally heading for, and the actual path is going to be some sort of zigzaggy thing in that direction. You try not to deviate too far from the path that you want to be on, but you're going to have to do that to some degree. But I don't want to diminish the. I mean, I think the profit motive is a good one if the rules of an industry are properly set up. So there's nothing fundamentally wrong with profit. In fact, profit just means that people are paying you more for whatever you're doing than you're spending to create it. That's a good thing. and if that's not the case, then you'll be out of business, and rightfully so. Because you're not adding enough value.
Rule number 14, be rigorous in self-analysis.
First of all, I really need to give some thought to like, how can I provide advice that would be most helpful? And I'm not sure I've given enough thought to that to give you the best possible answer. But I think certainly being focused on something that you're confident will have high value to someone else, and just being really rigorous in making that assessment, because people tend to, a natural human tendency is wishful thinking. So a challenge for entrepreneurs is to say, well, what's the difference between really believing in your ideals and sticking to them versus pursuing some unrealistic dream that doesn't actually have merit? And that is a really difficult thing to tell. Can you tell the difference between those two things?
Right.
You know? So you need to be sort of very rigorous in your self-analysis. I think certainly extremely tenacious, and then just work like hell. I mean, you just have to put in, 80 to 100 hour weeks every week.
Gosh,
and
that's
then
a lot of work.
All those things improve the odds of success.
Okay.
I mean, if other people are putting in 40-hour work weeks and you're putting in 100-hour work weeks, then even if you're doing the same thing, you know that in 1 year you will achieve what they achieve. You will achieve in 4 months what it takes them a year to achieve.
Rule number 15, expect to fail.
So failures are not the most terrible things. Well, you have to learn from it and react to it.
Yeah, exactly. When you're building something new, there's going to be mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's important to recognize those mistakes, acknowledge them, and take corrective action.
Oh.
And the success of a company is very much more about how quick are you to fix the mistakes, not will you make mistakes.
Or admit mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you see the difference between a startup that is successful and one that is not, and it's because the successful one, they both made mistakes, but the successful one recognized the mistakes, fixed them very quickly, And the unsuccessful one tries to deny that the mistakes exist.
You know, extremely smart people are sometimes quite arrogant because they believe in what they believe in, right? And so when they face criticism, it's less likely to admit, they can make mistakes. Was that in your case?
I learned it when I was studying physics. Mm-hmm. In physics, you're taught to always question yourself. You're taught to always assume that you're wrong, not assume that you're right, and you have to prove yourself not wrong. And so I think that physics framework is really where I learned it, and it's very effective for learning counterintuitive things that aren't obvious.
Mm. So you are very famous in saying that failure is actually an option, and if you're not failing, that means you're not innovative enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I like failure. I mean, who likes failure is terrible. But if you only do things that are certain to succeed, then you're only going to be doing very obvious things.
Rule number 16, have a sense of humor.
Question that has been discussed over the past couple of days. Should we be considering one-way only trips to Mars? What's the best approach to colonize the planet? Is it, what's your view? Is that socially acceptable? Do you think people will sign up to do it?
I think there's plenty of people who will sign up for a one-way trip to Mars. But
maybe if we could have a show of hands, who would consider such an option? I see some, not many, but perhaps enough for a couple of missions.
So certainly be enough. I mean, I think it's sort of like, is it a one-way mission and then you die? Or is it a one-way mission and you get resupplied? That's a big difference.
Very good. Wait for the second option.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I think it ends up being a moot point because you want to bring the spaceship back. Like, these spaceships are expensive, okay? They're hard to build. You can't just leave them there. So whether or not people want to come back or not is kind of like, they can jump on if they want, but they need the spaceship back.
Thank you.
I mean, it's kind of weird. Like, there's like huge collection of spaceships on Mars over time. Like, it's like, maybe we should send them back. I mean, of course we should send them back.
Rule number 17, aim for perfection.
Now, with Tesla, your goal has been to make a better car. And you've done that with an electric vehicle that people covet, that has quite a cult following, that's upgradable. But you also want to achieve, and your turn of phrase is very nice, or try to achieve this platonic ideal of a car, right? To reach perfection. So what does the perfect car look like?
Well, I mean, I do use that phrase with our engineering design team, that aspirationally we're in pursuit of the platonic ideal of the perfect car. Yeah. I mean, who knows what that looks like actually, but you want to try to make every element of the car as flawless as possible. And there will always be, some degree of imperfection, but try to minimize that and create a car that is just delightful in every way. And I think if you do that, then the rest kind of takes care of itself.
Rule number 18, do your chores.
Being innovative can be very exciting in life, but doing business sometimes requires, persistence, and sometimes could be very boring. Do you have the same fun from innovation as from business, running a business?
Well, I mean,
or would you rather to be just an innovator, engineer, instead of a business owner or runner?
I mean, I'd love to just do innovation and just do engineering. But you raise a good point because, a lot of life in general, in any job, there's like, you have to do your chores. Mm-hmm.
Because nobody else can do that for you, right?
Well, I think to be successful at almost anything, you have to do the tough stuff and as well as the enjoyable stuff. You have to do the boring stuff as well as the non-boring stuff. Mm-hmm. And if you don't do your chores, then bad things will happen. But if they don't do the things that they don't like to do, then the company will be in trouble. Yeah. Like, you have to, you basically, like, it's more fun to cook the meal than to clean the dishes. Mm-hmm. Okay, but you need to clean the dishes.
You need to do both.
Yes, you need to do both, exactly.
Rule number 19, be an adventurer.
2001, with just touring a friend of mine, and he asked me what I was going to do after PayPal, and I thought, well, I was wondering, like, I'd like to get involved in space, but I just didn't think there was anything I could do as an individual. But I was curious as to when NASA would be sending a team to Mars, because that was always going to be the thing to do after the moon. I figured that there'd be some plan, and I'd just go to the website and I could read the schedule. And
then Mars
it's like,
occurs.
oh yeah, it's like, okay, 2017, good, okay. But actually, there wasn't anything on the website, and or at least I thought, like, can I not find it? Like, what's going on here? And is it secret? I don't know. But it turned out that that NASA had done a study on what it would cost to do a manned Mars mission, and this was under Bush the First, and in his first, he asked for a 90-day study shortly after taking office, and NASA came back with a $500 billion price tag, and he said, okay, maybe not.
Billion with a B.
That's when $500 billion was serious money for the government. So then that got totally shelved, and it was like you were not allowed to talk about any kind of crewed mission to Mars at NASA. Anyway, but I thought, well, if I can do something that would galvanize public interest, and then that public interest would translate to additional appropriations for NASA and increase their budget, then maybe they could do it. So actually, what I sort of thinking I would do is send a small greenhouse to the surface of Mars with seeds in dehydrated gel, and then upon landing, hydrate the gel and grow the plants. And the public tends to respond to precedents and superlatives. So this would be the furthest that life's ever traveled, the first life on Mars. I tried to figure out how to do this with the proceeds that I had from PayPal. And I was able to figure out how to get the cost of the spacecraft down and the communications and the little greenhouse and everything. But the one thing I couldn't compress was the cost to launch, because there are only a few options. And the US options were way too expensive. And so I ended up going to Russia 3 times to try to buy the biggest ICBM in the Russian nuclear fleet.
That's where I'd start. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go big or go home. Right? Yeah.
I mean, okay. There was some strange trips, that's for sure. But it's like virtually, like you can buy any. It's a very capitalist society in some ways. So I actually did negotiate a deal to buy 2 of the ICBMs minus the nukes. But I came to the conclusion after that 3rd trip that it wouldn't really matter. Like I actually came to the conclusion that my initial premise was wrong, because I actually think there's a tremendous amount of will in the American population, particularly to explore. The United States, maybe more than any other country, is a distillation of the human spirit of exploration. And it's really fundamental to psyche. So if people think there's a way, I think it would actually get a lot of support. But it can't be just banging your head against the wall. I've got to believe that this can be done without breaking the federal budget. So that's when I said, okay, well, is there some way to affect the cost of space transport? And so I got together with a group of people over a series of Saturdays just to try to understand, is there something fundamentally super expensive about rockets, or can the cost be substantially improved? We had a bunch of those kind of brainstorming sessions, and I couldn't see any fundamental obstacle to improving the cost of rockets. So that's when I started SpaceX.
It's like, I'll just build them myself.
Yeah.
And then...
But like I said, at that point, I would say the probability of success was definitely less than 50%. I thought I would most likely not succeed. But it was worth a try.
Rule number 20, inspire greatness.
You're the CEO of SpaceX, and you've said that your ultimate goal is to get humankind to Mars. I've heard your response to the question, but these guys need to hear it. Why is Mars important? Why does Mars matter?
Sure. Well, I think it's really a fundamental decision we need to make as a civilization. What kind of future do we want? Do we want a future where we are forever confined to one planet until some eventual extinction event, however far in the future that might occur? Or do we want to become a multi-planet species and then ultimately be out there among the stars and be among many planets, many star systems? And I think the latter is a far more exciting and inspiring future than the former. And Mars is the next natural step. In fact, it's the only
planet we really have a shot at establishing a self-sustaining city on. And I think once we do establish such a city, there will be a strong forcing function for the improvement of spaceflight technology that will then enable us to establish colonies elsewhere in the solar system and ultimately extend beyond our solar system. And so there's the defensive reason of protecting the future of humanity, ensuring that the light of consciousness is not extinguished should some calamity befall Earth. But also, and that's the defensive reason. But personally, I find what gets me more excited is the fact that this would be an incredible adventure. I mean, it'd be like the greatest adventure ever. And it would be exciting and inspiring. And there need to be things that excite and inspire people.
Yeah.
You have to be, reasons why you get up in the morning. It can't just be solving problems. It's got to be, something great's going to happen in the future.
Yeah, we talked about this at length yesterday. It's not an exit strategy or a backup plan for humankind when Earth fails.
Right.
It's also to inspire people on Earth, right, and to transcend and to go beyond our mental limits of what we think we can achieve.
Right. I mean, think of sort of how incredible the Apollo program was, and just I mean, if you ask anyone and say, name some of humanity's greatest achievements of the 20th century, the Apollo program, landing on the moon, would in many, if not most places, be number one.
Rule number 21, take risks.
One of the most difficult choices I've ever faced in life was in 2008. I think I had maybe $30 million left, or $30 or $40 million left in 2008, and I had two choices. I could put it all into one company, and then the other company would definitely die, or split it between the two companies. But if I split it between the two companies, then both might die. And when you put your blood, sweat, and tears into creating something, or building something, it's like a child. And so it's like, which one am I going to let one starve to death? I couldn't bring myself to do it, so I split the money between the two. Fortunately, thank goodness, they both came through.
Rule number 22, create magic.
I've heard people say, listen, he's an out-of-the-box thinker, he's a businessman, he's an entrepreneur, but people that know
Really
you
a
say...
businessman, I wouldn't say.
You would say?
I'm not really a businessman.
You're not a businessman?
Not really.
No?
No.
What are you?
I'm sure there's probably lots of analysts on Wall Street who would agree that I'm not a businessman.
Okay, well, what do you think you are?
I'm an engineer.
An engineer?
Yeah.
Is it your dream to conquer the world and make the world a better place? What is your dream?
Like, technology is like magic, I think technology is the closest thing to magic that we have in the real world. And so I think engineering, creative engineering is essentially technology development. I guess maybe when I was a kid, Lord of the Rings is my favorite book.
Is it?
Yeah, and I thought it'd be what's the closest thing to being a wizard in the real world? And that's creating new technologies.
Rule number 23, don't rely on wishful thinking.
Young people globally want to be like Elon Musk. What's your advice to them?
I think that probably they shouldn't want to be.
You?
I think it sounds better than it is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not as much fun being me as you'd think. I don't know.
You don't think so?
No. There's definitely, it could be worse for sure, but it's, I'm not sure I'm not sure I want to be me.
Okay.
But I think advice, if you want to make progress in things, I think that the best analytical framework for understanding the future is physics. I'd recommend studying the thinking process around physics, not the equations. The equations certainly they're helpful, but the way of thinking in physics is it's the best framework for understanding things that are counterintuitive. And always taking the position that you are to some degree wrong, and your goal is to be less wrong over time. I think one of the biggest mistakes people generally make, and I'm guilty of it too, is wishful thinking. You know, like you want something to be true, even if it isn't true. And so you ignore the things that, you ignore the real truth because of what you want to be true. This is a very difficult trap to avoid. And like I said, it's certainly one that I find myself in having problems with. But if you just take that approach of you're always to some degree wrong and your goal is to be less wrong, and solicit critical feedback, particularly from friends. Like friends, particularly friends, if somebody loves you, they want the best for you. They don't want to tell you the bad things. So you have to ask them, you know, and say, really, I really do want to know. and then they'll tell you.
Rule number 24, survive failures.
What was your biggest failure, and how did it change you?
Oh, I have to really think hard about that. Failure. Never heard of it.
There's your answer.
Well, there's a ton of failures along the way, that's for sure. Like I said, as I said, for SpaceX, the first 3 launches failed. And we're just barely able to scrape together enough parts and money to do the 4th launch. If that 4th launch had failed, we would have been dead. So multiple failures along the way. I tried very hard to get the right expertise in for SpaceX. I tried hard to find a great chief engineer for the rocket, but the good chief engineers wouldn't join, and the bad ones, well, there was no point in hiring them. So I ended up being chief engineer of the rocket. So if I could have found somebody better, then we would have maybe had less than 3 failures.
Rule number 25, solve big problems.
His interest in our energy crisis started last year, when South Australia, a state already heavily invested in wind and solar power, was plunged into darkness. The result of a massive storm that saw the state lose power. Elon Musk tweeted headfirst into a national political brawl when fellow billionaire Australian IT whiz Mike Cannon-Brookes questioned Tesla's boast that it could help solve South Australia's energy problems by building the world's biggest battery. Why did you do that?
There was no idea of what would happen afterwards. Just more if people make big claims like that, I'd like to check if they're real.
You thought I was joking. Because I had to check with my team. It's like, I hope I didn't really say something super crazy.
When you get a return tweet from Elon saying, yeah, what did you think?
Sweet. Just checking his kosher. You know, he says it's going to happen, let's make it happen, right? So...
these are public tweets.
Yeah, but in a way, that's part of what locks in the guarantee, right? He's putting his reputation on the line in a public forum there that, you know, enough noise was then created around it, enough people saw that it was like, all right, that you know, he better get that done.
More than ever, Australians are struggling to pay for their power. A record number of families are on hardship plans or deferred payments, and the rate of disconnections in most states has risen sharply. For Elon Musk, learning of this growing power poverty is overwhelming. Cost of power is making it almost a luxury item.
Wow. Really?
Really?
I didn't realize it's that expensive. Australia has so many natural resources. I mean, even if you go the fossil fuel route, the electricity should be very cheap.
There are Australians today wondering if they can even turn on their lights. There are Australians today wondering, well, should we go without some food?
Sure.
That's just not something you would ever expect.
I did not expect that. We'll work harder. It's necessarily true that we will live on renewables. It's just a question of when. In fact, it's it's in the definition that if it's not renewable, that means it's going to run out at some point, and you will have the choice of collapse of civilization and into the dark age as we go, or find something that is renewable.
So all of this is about saving ourselves.
Yeah.
If Elon Musk had his way, the world would be totally powered by renewables and he'd be colonising Mars. He is a big picture man with big plans. But it might be his push for the modest lithium battery will prove to be one of the more significant steps in this electric revolution. You have been seen as a catalyst, somebody that is showing, gosh, there is another way.
Yeah.
And that's a great thing.
People in Australia should be proud of the fact that Australia has the world's biggest battery. This is pretty great. And that it will serve as an inspiration really to the whole world as well, to say that this is possible.
Rule number 26, commit fully.
This is widely regarded as one of the most robotics-driven auto assembly lines on the planet. Elon, part of the thing I heard about the Model 3 is that there's too many robots, that maybe...
Yeah, I agree.
You think so too? That maybe you need more people in here working?
We do.
In some cases, the robots actually slowed the production, right?
Yes, they did. We had this crazy complex network of conveyor belts, and it was not working. So we got rid of that whole thing.
This is cool, Elon.
Yeah.
Realizing it needed an overhaul, Musk personally took over the Model 3 production line at the beginning of April.
They're aiming for really extreme levels of precision, more than any other vehicle in the world.
He says he has resorted to pulling all-nighters at the plant.
When things get really intense, I don't have time to go home and shower and change, so I just sleep here.
I want to see. Where is that?
Oh, yeah. So
I want to see.
I mean, it's pretty boring overall, really.
It's actually cold in here too.
Yeah, I like it cold.
So you like it cold?
I sleep on the couch over there.
So you're just laying here on the couch?
Yeah. Last time I was here, I actually slept literally on the floor because the couch was too narrow.
Yeah, I was going to say. And Elon, I have to say, it's not even a comfortable couch either.
No, it's terrible. This is not a good couch.
Musk feels like all the overtime is paying off. And now he says the Model 3 line is back on track.
And we're able to unlock some of the critical things that were holding us back from reaching 2,000 cars a week. But since then, we've continued to do 2,000 cars a week.
Do you think that this is sustainable? This pace is sustainable?
Yeah.
Rule number 27, be a doer.
When you first told me that you were thinking about tunnels.
When did I first tell you about that?
Years ago.
Okay, it's like a long time ago.
Yeah,
like
I thought you were joking.
Yeah, it was. I was joking, but it's not because of some epiphany that I had one day driving down the 405. That's how it gets translated somehow. I was talking about tunnels for years and years. For probably 5 years or 4 years at least, whenever I'd give a talk and people would ask me about what opportunities do you see in the world, I'd say tunnels. Can someone please build tunnels? So after 4 or 5 years of begging people to build tunnels, and still no tunnels, I was like, okay, I want to build a tunnel. So like maybe I'm missing something here. So I was like basically talking people's ears off for tunnels for several years, and then said, well, let's find out what it takes to build a tunnel. And so I started digging a tunnel. I wanted to start the tunnel from where I could see it from my office at SpaceX. So I said, well, let's just carve off a part of the parking lot across the road so I can see if anything's happening or not. And then we named our first boring machine Godot, because I kept waiting for it. It never came. Finally it did. And we got it going. And now we're making good progress.
Rule number 28, don't fear fear too much.
What motivations do people need to harness to try to make change, as opposed to just reading about change? And that's not supposed to be an easy question. I don't think it's this.
Well, like I said, I think if you study engineering and you figure out how to design new things, then it's relatively easy to start a company. You just need to get a few like-minded people with you, and then focus on creating a prototype, a compelling prototype, as soon as possible, and then that there's a strong venture capital industry in this country that will give you funding to take things to the next level, and that's all there is to it. And you might, if try it a few times, you may or may not succeed. But I think sometimes people fear starting a company too much. You have to say, really, what's the worst that could go wrong? You're not going to starve to death. You're not going to die of exposure. What's the worst that could go wrong?
Rule number 29, push the limits.
How do you come with this idea, actually? Sometimes they're pushing the human limit. You are always pushing the human limit. Why?
Well, I think about what technology solution is necessary in order to achieve the particular goal, and then try to make as much progress in that direction as possible. I think being a multi-planet species and being out there among the stars is important for the long-term survival of humanity, and that's one reason, kind of like life insurance for life collectively, life as we know it. But then the part that I find personally most motivating is that it creates a sense of adventure, and it makes people excited about the future. If you consider two futures, one where we are forever confined to Earth until eventually something terrible happens, or another future where we are out there on many planets, maybe even going beyond the solar system, I think that second version is incredibly exciting and inspiring, and there need to be reasons to get up in the morning. Life can't just be about solving problems. Otherwise, what's the point? There's got to be things that people find inspiring and make life worth living.
Rule number 30, have fun.
Come with me where moonbirds hit the sky. And then you'll walk with me along the by on by.
Okay, all together now.
My little buttercup.
My little buttercup has the sweetest smile.
My little buttercup, where do you stay a while?
Won't you stay a while? Come with me where moonbeams meet the sky. And you and I will walk the by on by.
Well, this is really winning.
Rule number 31, have a high pain tolerance.
There's a friend of mine who's got a great saying about creating a company, which is trying to build a company and have it succeed is like eating glass and staring into the abyss. So, what tends to happen is it's sort of quite exciting for the first several months of starting a company, and then reality sets in. Things don't go as well as planned. Customers aren't signing up. The technology or the product isn't working as well as you thought. And then that can sometimes be compounded by a recession, and it can be very, very painful for several years. So I think, frankly, starting a company, I would advise people to have a high pain tolerance.
Rule number 32, generate word of mouth.
How, aside from making great products, how do you get people excited about Tesla? There's a lot of people I know and that I talk to who are just intrigued and interested and excited about Tesla as a company.
The thing I really focus on at Tesla is like really put all of our money into and attention into trying to make the product as compelling as possible. So, because I think that really the way to sell any product is through word of mouth. So if somebody gets the car, they really like it, and actually the key is like to have a product that people will love. And generally people, if they're at a party or touring friends or whatever, you'll talk about the things that you love. But if you just like something, it's okay. You're not going to care that much. But if you
get
love
the reactions from the highs and the lows, so you got to make sure people really love it.
You're gonna talk, and then that'll generate word of mouth, and that's basically how our sales have grown. Like we don't spend any money on advertising or endorsements so anyone like buys our car, they just bought it because they like the car, and it's genuine.
Rule number 33, use your own money.
Zip2 happened, you sold it, and
and bought the McLaren, yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, you invested most of that money into your next venture, X.com.
That's right. So most of the funds went into X.com, which was later renamed PayPal. That worked out pretty well.
It worked out pretty well, but looking back on it, because you put a lot of your eggs in that basket, would you advise entrepreneurs to roll the bones quite the way you did?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. I think it's worth investing your own capital in what you do. I don't believe in the sort of other people's money thing. I think if you're not willing to put your own assets at stake, then you shouldn't ask other people to do that.
Rule number 34, ignore the competition.
Well, we don't think too much about what competitors are doing.
Yeah.
Just because I think it's important to be just focused on making the best possible products. It's sort of maybe analogous to what they say about if you're in a race.
Yeah.
Don't worry about what the other runners are doing.
Yeah.
Just run.
Rule number 35, find your drive.
Or 47. What is the likelihood that you personally will go to Mars?
70%. We've recently made a number of breakthroughs that I'm just really fired up about.
And when does that happen? In our lifetimes?
Yeah. I'm talking about moving there. So it's like, if you can get the price per ticket maybe around $200,000.
This could be an escape hatch for rich people.
No, your probability of dying on Mars is much higher than Earth. Really, the ad for going to Mars would be like Shackleton's ad for going to the Antarctic. It's going to be hard. There's a good chance of death. Going in a little can through deep space. You might land successfully. Once you land successfully, there will be you'll be working nonstop to build the base. So not much time for leisure. And once you get there, even after doing all this, there's a very harsh environment, so there's a good chance you die there. We think you can come back, but we're not sure. Now, does that sound like an escape hatch for rich people?
And yet you would unhesitatingly go.
There's lots of people that climb mountains. Why do they climb mountains? Because people die on Mount Everest all the time. They like doing it for the challenge.
Rule number 36, persevere.
When did it occur to you that Zip2 might be a success?
Well, when we first started out, I think our ambitions were really quite low. It was really to make enough money to pay the rent.
Yeah, we got a VC give us money. That was, yay!
Yeah.
We thought it was all over then.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. When we started out in '95, we literally, at the beginning, we had one computer, which would be the web server during the day, and then at night, I'd program on it. And
we'd sleep in the office.
Yeah,
we couldn't afford to have an apartment.
It was cheaper to rent the office than to rent an apartment, so we just rented the office and slept in the office and showered at the YMCA.
Showered at the YMCA. And for me, the worst part was eating at Jack in the Box 3 times a day.
Yeah, man, this like
I'll sleep
it's really difficult to get food at Palo Alto after like 10 p.m. It's like Jack in the Box and a few other options. So we rotated through the Jack in the Box menu. Through the end of '95, that's essentially we're just sleeping in the office and showering at the YMCA, and then around the end of '95 is when Netscape went public, and then whether or not somebody knew what the internet was, they knew that you could make money on the internet somehow, or even if it's only on the greater fool theory. So when we went and talked to venture capitalists in early '96, there was a much greater interest in what we were doing. In fact, the round closed in like maybe a week or something.
It was crazy. Yeah, we went from sleeping in the office to people throwing, again, this is a financial crowd, so you guys see these numbers every day, but for us to hear, we'll give you $3 million.
Yeah, that sounded extremely, we thought they were crazy. Like, why would they do that?
It was literally like, these people are insane.
They obviously do not realize we're sleeping in the office.
In fact, when they did fund us, they realized that we were illegal immigrants.
Well,
yes, we were.
I'd say it's a gray area.
Yeah, yes, we were. We were illegal immigrants. We were sleeping in the office. We didn't have a car. We had one car, but the wheel kept falling off.
Well, actually, yeah, the wheel did actually fall off the car.
Yes, exactly. And the venture capitalists actually bought us cars.
Yeah, well, they gave us 40 grand.
It was 40 grand to go buy cars, which was, at the time, was more money than we've ever seen.
Rule number 37, make products people love.
Advice I'd give to people starting companies, to entrepreneurs in general, is really focus on making a product that your customers love. It's so rare that you can buy a product and you love the product when you bought it. There are very few things that fit into that category. And if you can come up with something like that, your business will be successful for sure.
Rule number 38, be willing to make sacrifices.
Well, I mean, Tesla really faced a severe threat of death due to the Model 3 production ramp. Essentially, the company was bleeding money like crazy, and just if we didn't solve these problems in a very short period of time, we would die. And it was extremely difficult to solve them.
How close to death did you come?
Within single-digit weeks.
22 hours a day, or like what? How many
I
hours?
was working, so 7 days a week, sleeping in the factory. I worked in the paint shop, general assembly, body shop.
You ever worry about yourself imploding? Like it's just too much?
Absolutely. No one should put this many hours into work. This is not good. And people should not work this hard. They should not do this. It's very painful.
Painful in what sense?
It hurts my brain and my heart. So this is not recommended for anyone. I just did it because if I didn't do it, then good chance Tesla would die.
Rule number 39, have a great team.
You need a team around you to deliver a lot of idea. How do you choose your team? Based on what?
Well, I suppose honestly that it tends to be gut feel more than anything else. So when I interview somebody, my interview question is always the same. It's
What do you ask?
I said, tell me the story of your life and the decisions that you made along the way and why you made them. And then, and also tell me about some of the most difficult problems you worked on and how you solved them. And that question I think is very important because the people that really solved the problem, they know exactly how they solved it. They know the little details. And the people that pretended to solve the problem, they can maybe go one level and then they get stuck.
Rule number 40, have fun.
Welcome. Hi, Felix.
Hey, Felix. Yeah, we're gonna look at some memes, right?
Yes.
And say funny things about them.
Well, I think we rate them.
Oh, we rate them. Okay, that's
It's a
right.
review, and then
We're reviewing them.
out of 10.
Of course. Okay.
I mean, there's some good memes here.
Is this the first one?
I believe so.
Okay. Yeah.
A spoon is just a small bowl on a stick used to eat from a larger bowl. He is earnestly presenting this in Congress.
And you can see how easy it would be to just replace that text and add anything you want there.
It's almost as though he wasn't saying that.
So yeah, I rate this out of what's the scale? 1 to 10?
Yeah.
Is it 1 to 10? Oh, 5, I guess.
Yeah, 6 maybe.
Maybe a 6.
Yeah.
It's
like a mid-range. It's a mid-range meme.
Yeah. I don't think this one's got legs. Also, it's kind of tipping into the political area, which is like, I don't know, who needs it?
You know what would be funny? Get off my lawn.
That would
just get off my lawn. Would be great.
That would be really good. Get off my lawn. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'll bump it up another number because so I give it a 6.
Get off my lawn.
Madagascar and Gascar. Oh, I see. So you love Madagascar because it's just such a heartwarming, wonderful film. But then Gascar, you're like, what? I've actually never seen this movie. So.
Have you never seen Madagascar?
No.
There's a lot of lemurs.
I refuse to watch any movie with the word Gascar in it.
It's not bad. It's 6.
But no, but really,
I think I'll make you everything is 6.
How do you? But how do you feel about it? Is that trippy? Like for real? There's a meme with you in it. Are you sort of like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Or have you gotten over that and you're just like, okay.
Well, I mean, this past couple years have been, particularly last year, it was Meme City.
Meme City.
Yeah, Meme City.
Man, that'd be an
I've
interesting
seen a lot
city.
of memes. Okay, now this is a proper quandary.
Okay.
Proper quandary.
Okay.
Would you step on Stuart Little for $18 billion?
I love how poorly photoshopped. It's like they got a gray color and just erased whatever the hell it's like and just put him in. Yeah, the only sentient mouse, or is it sentient or sentient?
Sentient.
Is it sentient? I've always said sentient.
I've said sentient.
Sentient.
Sentient or sentient.
Okay, what is this? Stop sending me this shit. Wait, that's not Post at all. Who is that guy?
That's me. That's
oh
me.
my
That's
God, is that a
me.
weird combination of you and Post?
Yes.
And is this a real tweet?
No.
Okay. Man, dude, nothing. You can't
That's
believe
pretty good, though.
anything. It is, yeah.
This is where I'm face mashed with Post Malone.
That's a funny meme.
That's a funny one.
You could apply it not only to you, but to other celebrities and
yes.
people. So yeah, I think that's a funny meme. I'm into that.
I'd give it an 8.
Because it could be just like a dumb drawing. It could be it could be so many wonderful things.
I say 8.
8. Yeah, 8. It's a solid 8. Whoa. This is like,
so meta. Me laughing at the idea of me laughing at me.
Jesus Christ.
Rule number 41, have a strong why.
The president's first space policy directive to me was go to the moon, and the word in there is sustainable.
Reusability is fundamental. A fully reusable vehicle will cost 100 times less per flight than an expendable vehicle. I actually don't care at all about money, at all. But I do care about us becoming a spacefaring civilization. Yeah. And I do know that if we don't achieve full and rapid reusability, it will not happen. Yeah. And so that's the only reason I actually want money at all. What I really want to see is, permanent base on the moon, permanently occupied human base on the moon, and us building a city on Mars. That's like, if I can see the beginning of that before I die, I'll die happy.
Rule number 42, don't fear failure.
We got to try to create an electric car company. But it wasn't as though in creating these companies that we thought that we would be successful. I thought that the most likely outcome was failure. But it was still worth doing, even though the odds of success were low. In fact, even for SpaceX, originally what I started doing was not creating a rocket company, but actually was going to do a small mission to Mars, which was just a philanthropic mission where you would send a small greenhouse with seeds and dehydrated gel, and it would, upon landing, hydrate the gel, and you'd have this cool picture of green plants on a red background. And the public tends to respond to precedents and superlatives. So this would be the first life on Mars, furthest that life's ever traveled, and you'd have this great money shot of green plants on a red background. So, I thought that would get people's attention. So, but the expectation for that was no return. So I thought we wouldn't get any, we'd just spend the money on that, and it wouldn't happen.
Rule number 43, use physics principles in your thinking.
And the way I tend to view problems is from a physics standpoint. I think physics is a good analytical framework, and one of the key things in physics is to reason from first principles. This is contrary to the way most human reasoning takes place, which is by analogy. Reasoning from first principles just means that you figure out what are the fundamental truths or things that people are pretty sure are fundamental truths. And can you build up to a conclusion from that, from those principles, and then certainly if you come up with some idea and it appears to violate one of those fundamental truths, then you're probably wrong, or you should get a really big prize or something like that. So this may seem like, I don't know, it may seem sort of obvious when it's explained, but it's actually not what people do. Reasoning by analogies is helpful because it's a shortcut. Yeah. And it's mostly correct, but it tends to be most incorrect when you're dealing with new things, because it's hard to analogize to something really new.
Rule number 44, make sacrifices.
Well, Tesla really faced a severe threat of death due to the Model 3 production ramp. Essentially, the company was bleeding money like crazy, and just if we didn't solve these problems in a very short period of time, we would die. And it was extremely difficult to solve them.
How close to death did you come?
Within single-digit weeks.
22 hours a day, or how many hours?
I was working, so 7 days a week, sleeping in the factory. I worked in the paint shop, general assembly, body shop.
You ever worry about yourself imploding, like it's just too much?
Absolutely. No one should put this many hours into work. This is not good. And people should not work this hard. They should not do this. It's very painful.
Painful in what sense?
It hurts my brain and my heart.
Rule number 45, take risks.
You started with a much smaller rocket, a Falcon 1. And was your goal at that point, when you started with Falcon 1, to get to the point where we had 9 engines for Falcon 9? Was that your goal at that time?
When I started SpaceX, I only thought there was maybe a 10% chance of getting Falcon 1 to orbit. I did not at all think that this would happen. So this is for sure a dream come true. But I literally at the time I didn't know anything about rockets, and I've been the chief engineer of SpaceX since day one, and I don't really know anything about rockets, which is why the first 3 rockets failed.
Right.
And then
so the first 3 Falcon 1s for SpaceX were failures.
Yes.
And then tell me about the fourth one.
The fourth one, so I'd actually only had enough money for three flights. So I had no more money left, and we managed the team sort of rallied, and we managed to put together enough spare parts to do a 4th launch, and that 4th launch was successful. And then
so what would have happened if it wasn't successful?
Oh, well, SpaceX would have died.
So we would not be here right now, at this moment, getting ready to launch Crew Dragon to the International System.
Rule number 46, ask the right questions.
When you were in college and developing these skills, you wanted to do some things that were of benefit to humanity. Why did you think that?
Well,
because not everyone does.
Yeah, no, I guess it was, I had sort of an existential crisis of like, what does it all mean, and what's the meaning of life, and
was this 3 a.m. over a beer, or this was more serious?
Probably goes back to high school, I guess. I don't want to give a laboriously long answer, but I was, I had sort of a dark childhood. It wasn't good. Probably partially brought on by reading some of the philosophers. Like, don't ever read Schopenhauer and Nietzsche if you're 14. It's not good.
Yeah, or Ayn Rand either. Too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was just trying to figure out what does it all mean, and actually. When I read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I think is a great work of philosophy, that sort of highlighted the point that very often the issue is understanding what questions to ask. And if you can properly frame the question, then the answer is the easy part. So I thought things that expand the scope and scale of the human consciousness and allow us to better ask questions and achieve greater enlightenment, those are good things. And so that's sort of what can we do that's going to most likely lead to that outcome.
Rule number 47, disrupt the industry.
Back in '95, there weren't very many people on the internet, and certainly nobody was making any money at all. Most people thought the internet was going to be a fad.
A year ago, Musk sold his software company, Zip2, which enabled newspapers to publish online for $400 million cash.
Receiving cash is cash. I mean, those are just a large number of Ben Franklins.
So this is an ATM. What we're going to do is transform the traditional banking industry.
I do not fit the picture of a banker.
X.com, this is Julie.
Raising $50 million is a matter of making a series of phone calls, and the money is there. I've sunk the great majority of my net worth into X.com, which is the new banking and mutual funds company on the internet that I've started.
Big X.
Exactly. X.com.
I think X.com could absolutely be a multi-billion-dollar bonanza, because if you look at the industry that X is pursuing, it's the biggest sector of the world economy.
I mean, what you've got going on with the internet is it's basically like an earthquake where the epicenter is Silicon Valley, and it's shaking up the whole world.
Rule number 48, have people you admire.
You've been compared to Henry Ford, Richard Branson, Steve Jobs. Who do you compare yourself to?
I don't really compare myself to anyone. I mean, it's not. There's certain people that I admire from history that I think are great. Certainly, many of the scientists and engineers and literary figures and so forth. I'm a big fan of Ben Franklin. Who's
scientist and sort of thinker. And I mean, he was the kind of guy who did what needed to be done, you know. So like guys like that, I wouldn't say I compare myself in any way, but I certainly admire them.
Rule number 49, push the frontier.
Well, I think part of the problem, the reason people aren't as excited about space is that we haven't been pushing the frontier as much. And so you can only watch the same movie so many times before it gets a little boring. And you know, in the 60s and early 70s, we were really pushing the frontier of human spaceflight. And obviously those landing on the moon is regarded as one of the greatest achievements of humanity, arguably of life itself. And even though only a handful of people went to the moon, vicariously we all went there. Well, at least I wasn't alive at the time, but retrospectively. And you know, and it was just one of those really inspiring things that I think made everyone glad to be, you know, human. You know, it's like the things that they're bad things humanity does, and they're good things, and this is one of the good things. And I do think it's important that we have these inspiring things that make you glad to get up in the morning, and glad to be a member of the human race. And we need to push that frontier. And I think the great goal we should be trying to pursue is trying to make life make life multiplanetary. Mm-hmm. So to establish a self-sustaining and growing civilization on another planet, Mars being the only realistic possibility, and I think that would just be one of the greatest things humanity could ever try to do.
And rule number 50, the last one before a very special bonus clip, is make things happen.
From the first explorers who ventured off our planet, to those who have risked their lives in pursuit of furthering our understanding of the universe, the astronauts and engineers behind the U.S. space program have spent decades advancing space technology. But building rockets was expensive. By the early 2000s, the U.S. space program was struggling, and a mission to Mars was hard to imagine.
The space shuttle spreads its wings one final time for the start of a sentimental journey into history.
It was then that a young entrepreneur had a revolutionary idea.
With SpaceX, what we're trying to do is achieve a huge advancement in rocket technology. If you look at rocket technology, it actually got worse over time. In 1969, we were able to go to the moon. And then with the space shuttle, we were only able to go to low Earth orbit. And then the space shuttle went away, and then we weren't able to go to orbit from the United States. So that's a negative trend line. It's not like you can extrapolate that trend line into the future and it gets good. It's a trend line to zero. So if it's not going to come from the government, then it's got to come from a private company.
Now I have a special bonus clip from Elon Musk on how to ask great questions that I think you're going to enjoy. But before that, it's time for the 3-point landing questions. Let's go from just watching a video to taking action. Here we go. Question number 1. What difficulty do you have right now that you just need to persevere through? Number 2, what's the fear that you fear too much? And number 3, where do you need to be more of an adventurer? And if you promise to take action after watching this video, we don't just watch videos anymore, we do something after watching them. Give me a hashtag believe down in the comments, make that promise to yourself, and then get to work.
Innovation comes from questioning the way things have been done before.
Yeah.
And if in the education system you're taught not to do that, that will inhibit entrepreneurship.
Being able to question what you're being taught, being able to...
Yeah. I mean, just, saying, well, is there a better way?
Yeah.
To ask that question.
If you want to learn how to be the next Elon Musk, check out the video right there next to me. I think you'll enjoy it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
The challenge for entrepreneurs is to say, well, what's the difference between really believing in your ideals and sticking to them versus pursuing some unrealistic